has been given by ICR facility, European Union, GIZ East Africa, and the collaboration from East Africa Women in Business Platform. But also let me recognize EABC members and members of the business community who are here with us today. But further, let me take the opportunity to commend the support that has been given by ICR and GIZ East Africa aimed towards capacitating the private sector to facilitate their role in building the capacity of their members to develop reforms, but also to discuss and promote gender-sensitive policy reforms in the region and beyond. So this training here today will support the private sector players with the critical capacity to enhance their ability to collect and analyze data in gender-sensitive ways. And further, it will be useful to come up with policy reforms that will be able to promote a level playing field and business environment for both trade and investment. So this support from GIZ and from ICR facility is very critical for the private sector, and it is very timely. Also, ladies and gentlemen, women, despite consisting the largest percent of the population in East Africa, they have been disproportionated by different challenges, including accessing credit, restrictions in growing their businesses, getting employment, and partially stemming from laws, regulation, and complex regulatory procedures that have made women to be more affected in their day-to-day operation. So we note that women economic empowerment is a prerequisite for sustainable development, for achieving the regional development in terms of trade and investment. Through women economic empowerment, we can transform women and their roles to move from limited power, voice, and economic participation by having the necessary skills, resources, and opportunity needed to compete equitably. According to the World Bank report on gender-informed public-private dialogue, gender-biased inequalities impose significant development cost on societies. Women, who make up more than half of the human resource in most of our countries, if not fully engaged in most of our economies, we run the risk of undermining our competitiveness. It is under this spirit that PPDs need to be gender informed to capture the missing potential. A gender approach in PPDs can be applied at both policy and process level. This will address gender perspectives on laws, regulations, and their reforms, while actively promoting gender engagements through PPD structures and applying a gender lens as part of PPD evaluation. Let me conclude these remarks by once again thanking you all for making time to participate in this training, and call on you to participate actively. I further call on ICR facility and GIZ East Africa to make a continued commitment to support similar interventions in the region. EABC pledges to use the deliberations from this training to engage the EAC Secretariat and relevant organs to establish a gender-sensitive PPD in our region. So let me thank you all for listening to those remarks, and let me take the opportunity now to call on the representative from GIZ ICR, Ms. Christina, for her remarks. Karibu.
Therefore, for Christina's presentation, we will project and then she will deliver. It's on now. Christina, you're welcome.
My colleague Gift is going to give her the mic and then she will deliver the remarks.
Thank you. Sorry, my mic was disabled. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Gouch, and I work with the ICR facility based in Brussels. So the Investment Climate Reform Facility works with public authorities at national level, local level or regional level, and private sector organizations to improve the investment climate so that the private sector can thrive. In general, we support business environment reforms that support women's full participation in the economy. And it is important to note that we work in a demand-based manner, meaning eligible organizations, so for instance, you can apply for support by filling out the request form on our website. And then once assessed by our team and approved, we will then get back to you to design the support, also known as intervention jointly. Could you please move on to the next slide? Just briefly, our interventions or support are very diverse and they are all displayed on our website if you're interested. So we support, for instance, Association of Employers to tackle gender equality issues in the workplace, followed by a PBT process, or we work with ministries of industries to develop gender-sensitive, green and evidence-based industrial policies. Another path we also follow is on advocacy. So for instance, we're working with the Kenyan Association of Manufacturers on a policy paper to support the organization's ability to advocate for women to benefit from the CFTA opportunities. These are just a few of the interventions we work on with our requesters. And yes, with that being said, the request form is on our website and we are very excited to receive requests from you and work together with you. And I'm also very excited for this training on gender sensitive and inclusive PBD for business environment reforms. I do not want to take much time from this training, and I will hand it back to the moderators. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Christina. So let me take the opportunity to welcome the chairperson of the East Africa Women in Business Platform, Ms. Elizabeth, for her remarks.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. As you heard, my name is Elizabeth Hande, the current chair of East African Women in Business Platform. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and fellow advocates of gender equality and inclusive economic development, I am delighted to welcome each one of you to this crucial discussion on gender sensitive and inclusive public-private dialogue for business environment reform. Importance of gender-sensitive public-private dialogue. Today, we gather with a shared vision to foster an environment that empowers all individuals, regardless of gender, to actively participate and thrive in the economic landscape, recognizing that true progress is achieved only when every choice, every voice is heard, and every perspective is valued. We are committed to dismantling barriers and biases that hinder equal access to economic opportunities. In the upcoming session, we aim to delve into the significance of public-private dialogue as a catalyst for business environment reform. By promoting open communication and collaboration between governments, private sectors, and civil society, we can collectively pave the way for sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Best practices and success stories. As an advocate for the East African Women in Business Platform, EWIP, it has emerged as a pivot force in promoting gender-sensitive and inclusive public-private dialogue for business environment reform. With steadfast commitment to empowering women entrepreneurs and leaders across East Africa, EWIP has been instrumental in driving tangible change and fostering a more equitable economic landscape. Through strategies, partnerships, and collaborations, EWIP actively engages with governments, private sectors, and civil society to advocate for gender-sensitive policies and initiatives. By amplifying the voices of women in business, EWIP has successfully placed gender equality at the forefront of business environment and reform, business environment reform discussions, ensuring that the unique challenges faced by women entrepreneurs are acknowledged and addressed. As a beacon of empowerment, inclusivity, EWIP continues to champion gender-sensitive public-private dialogue, inspiring others to follow suit and create environments where all individuals can realize their full potential. With their relentless efforts, EWIP is not only shaping the future of business in East Africa, but also making strides toward a more equitable and prosperous society. Challenges faced by women in business. 1, limited to finance. Women entrepreneurs often encounter difficulty in obtaining funding for their businesses due to unequal access to financial services. 2, lack of presentation. Women presentation in leadership role and decision-making positions within the public and private sectors may be inadequate, hindering the development of inclusive policies. Number 3, unequal access to education and skills training. Disparities in education and training opportunities can limit women's ability to compete on an equal footing in the business environment. 4, legal and regulatory barriers. Existing laws and regulations may not fully protect women's rights or provide equal opportunities, inhibiting their participation in the trade sector. 5, work-life balance challenges. Balancing work responsibilities with family duties can be particularly challenging for women, affecting their ability to fully engage in trade-related activities. 6, limited networking opportunities. Women may face barriers in accessing professional networks and mentorship, which are crucial for business growth and success. The last one, 7, is gender-based violence and harassment. Women in trade may encounter gender-based violence or harassment negatively impacting their safety and well-being in the business environment. This we have experienced it in the cross-border traders where women are really, face a bit of harassment. Addressing these challenges requires a comprehensive approach involving policy reforms, targeted support programs, awareness campaigns, and collaborative efforts from governments, private sectors, entities, and civil societies organizations. Capacity building and mentorship. Moreover, our focus on gender sensitivity emphasizes the need to acknowledge and address gender-specific challenges faced by women entrepreneurs and business leaders. Through the lens of inclusivity, we strive to identify tailored solutions that can effectively bridge the gender gap and amplify the voices of women in the business world. Together, we will explore best practices, success stories, and lessons learned from various initiatives around the globe. Our intention is to inspire actionable strategies that can be adapted to local contexts, driving tangible progress towards a gender-balanced and inclusive business environment. Creating gender-sensitive policies. Let us engage in thoughtful discussion through this session, exchange ideas, and nurture our collaborative spirit throughout this session. Once again, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all our distinguished speakers, partners, and attendees for joining us today. Let us embark on this transformative journey towards a more inclusive, equitable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for those wonderful remarks. So let me take the opportunity now to welcome Ms. Joyce Kimaro, who is our lead facilitator for today, to give us an introduction of the training and to begin with the training. Karibu, Joyce.
Great. Thank you very much, Zafa, for the introduction. And thank you, the previous speakers, for the remarks, which has set the agenda for this training. We welcome all the participants. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And also, if you have any wish for the facilitators, we would appreciate if you can jot it down in the chat. We will take it up and address them. In case we were not able to provide instant feedback, we will research on it and give back to you. For now, I would like to welcome you for the training, which is going to be 2 hours. Already some minutes have taken up for welcome remarks. Basically, we are going to delve deep into public-private partnership for women economic empowerment for national associations of East African Business Council and East African Women in Business Platform members in East Africa, as well as the staff of the 2 organizations. So basically, I would like to start by introducing myself. My name is Joyce Kevin Abalo. I'm the Senior Economic Advisor at the GIZ ESC program based here in Arusha, Tanzania. And I will be the lead facilitator for this workshop. I will be supported by my colleagues who are from different countries of the ACP countries. I will give them one minute to introduce themselves. Marcia and Joey, you're welcome to introduce yourself. Frank, can you give the mic to Marcia and Joy to introduce themselves? Okay, I don't seem to be hearing very quick. I will just proceed to the next. Go to the next slide. So basically, the main objective of this training is to create awareness on gender-sensitive public-private dialogue for business environment reforms and women economic empowerment. We will as well examine gender-sensitive data in PPDs for private sector development and advocacy. The main expectation is that we will examine how PPDs has the potential to promote women economic empowerment in East Africa. We'll explore how gender-sensitive PPDs can foster women economic empowerment in East Africa, and also understand how gender-sensitive data collection and its importance in enhancing the sector's growth and trade. So the workshop expectations are basically to understand gender-sensitive business environment reforms through PPDs, become aware of good PPDs participations, practices, and how this approach can be promote gender-sensitive business environment, create awareness on how to establish gender-sensitive PPDs and the role of women and women association in PPDs. And finally, understand gender-sensitive data collection and its importance in enhancing the sector's trade and growth. So, based on the pre-survey that we have sent to the participants, we have been able to get various participants' objectives, which we have clustered to about 4 categories, looking at women economic empowerment, public-private dialogue, women inclusion or sensitivity in business environment, and general expectations. However, all these expectations are very much aligned with the workshop objectives. So just a few of them under each category that we would like to learn about public-private partnership and women economic empowerment. Good conclusion on women economic empowerment. We want to gain more knowledge about women economic empowerment and also be able to transform and get empowered and also learn how to support women in business. Specific to PPDs, participants mentioned that they would like to deepen their understanding on how public-private dialogue can promote gender-sensitive data and how this can be used in formulation of informed policy in East Africa. Under women inclusion and business environment reform, many of the participants mentioned that they would like to understand how to conduct advocacy for gender equality through PPD, main challenges hampering women in business, which has also been alluded to by the chairperson for the Women in Business, Elizabeth Ande, to learn more about inclusive dialogue and also understand female engagement in development programs, female inclusion in policies and economic development. Under general, where basically participants mentioned they would like to get capacity development in the areas of the topic that we are going to delve in, get networking opportunities among the participants, but also where experience sharing will provide, learn how to build confidence amongst themselves so that they're able to participate in the various trade forums, and then also tap in the partnership opportunities in PPDs that will be provided. So basically, these are the expectations. Most of them, they are very much aligned. Then in terms of the participants, based on the pre-survey, we have received 61 representatives who have signed up for this training. So far, we are seeing 28 who are available, but are hoping that some will keep joining. So basically, these are the organizations that have registered. You can see for yourself. I will not go into details as the participant registration already provides that, but you can see where your organization is there. If not mentioned, kindly type on the chat and we will be able to pick it up as new addition. Next. So in terms of ground rules, many of you are aware of online workshops or meeting etiquette. For today, we will have that we focus on the presentation and answer questions. Enjoy the session and be able to test that you are able to have your questions ready and that the organizers will be able to admit you on time so that you can provide your input. Stay in a place which avoid distractions so that you are able to contribute and participate actively. Greet the host in case you want to speak and also say a word, raise your hand. When speaking, look at the camera. We would request that you put on your camera. If not, you're able to just alert us and we will know that you are not able to project yourself through the camera. We would request that you focus and participate actively. Mute your mic if you are not speaking. And fortunately, we are all muted, and then we can only speak when you have been granted opportunity to speak. Use the chat effectively, as this is the most open opportunity for you to express yourself. Yes, and respect others' opinion. Let's be respectful to each other, as also you raise your hands while you're speaking. So these are our ground rules. The topics that will be covered are very clear, already mentioned. We are looking at PPDs for gender-sensitive business environment reforms, importance on gender-sensitive business reform in PPDs, and also the inclusion of women voices in PPDs under session 1. Then session 2, we will focus on gender-sensitive public-private dialogue for promoting women economic empowerment. women's participation in PPDs, and give some examples of international best practices for women engagement in PPD for women economic empowerment. The third session would focus on gender-sensitive data for successful PPDs and interactive group sessions, where we will then go in groups and discuss based on the questions that will be provided. So this is the sessions we will cover. So the program of the day has already been projected. This is basically looking at how the day will go through. Now we are going to, before I proceed to the session 1, I would like to remind the EABC team that we should go into a group photo session. Then I can be able to start straight away to the first session. So Gift and Frank, kindly guide us how this will take place. Thank you.
Joyce, just allow Gift to allow the participants to switch on their 1 minute, and then what we'll do is we'll ask everyone to put on their cameras, and then we'll do a screenshot on our side, and then we'll allow you to switch off your cameras after that. So just for the time being, if we can allow everyone to switch on their cameras, okay, and put on their best smiles. Just a few seconds, and then we'll continue with our training. Okay, we are done. Thank you. And now, Joyce, back to you. You can continue. Please switch off your camera so that we can save on the bandwidth, and also we can have a smooth flow of our presentation. Sorry, Joyce, you're muted.
Okay, so we are looking at session 1, whereby we are looking at the public-private dialogue for business environment reform. And under this session, we will look at PPDs for gender-sensitive, inclusive business environment, its importance for promoting sensitive business environment reform through PPDs, and the rationale for including women voices in PPDs. So it is important for us to know that most of you have somehow probably engaged or heard about the concept of PPDs. It's mainly focusing on outcome-focused discussion or dialogue between the private and the public, mainly represented by private sector and the government, to discuss issues which affect business environment and also policy reforms that is needed to improve business environment. Now, PPD is not a new concept. We have been with it for some time. However, its growing prominence is taking momentum, which is being used as a tool for promoting private sector development. So, for example, in East Africa, we have been using PPDs in academic public-private sector forum to promote the inclusion and uptake of university students direct to private sector realm so that they can perform effectively. So they are trying to promote private sector tailor-made labor skills from university so that they're able to provide the needed labor force.
and also promote employability of graduates. So how are PPDs structured? PPDs are mainly structured in various forms. They take various forms. It can be structured like having how the participants will participate, objectives, outcomes, and where will these recommendations go. Or it could be ad hoc, whereby it is just based on a loose membership and also based on thematic focus. It could be formal or informal, and also varies across different specific issues. We have seen over time that PPDs has provided quite a number of advantages or benefits. We have seen how policies have been designed that have basically benefited private sector, and also some women issues have been included. We have seen how the level of policy reforms have also taken into consideration private sector issues and concerns. But most of all, it has been a method of transparency for the private sector and government on issues of business environment reform. However, there are challenges related with PPDs, which we are all aware. The reason we are here is that majority of women issues or women policy environment have not been taken into consideration, especially women who are in rural areas. So that is one of the limitations. And the other aspect is that sometimes the structure is not inclusive of the voices of women, associations or women issues. However, I would like to note here that PPDs can be initiated by various stakeholders. Government can initiate, entrepreneurs as present in this meeting, we can initiate a PPD process. Third parties such as international development partners or donors can also initiate a PPD. So there are various levels that this can take place at local level, at national, international, and this can be based on sector. It can be cross-cutting across economic issues or specific to a particular sector. So PPDs occurs when there is really a need to review obstacles to business development and propose measures to improve the business environment reform and how this should be addressed. Most of the time, there are various stakeholders, as mentioned earlier. We have the businesses, we have the entrepreneurs, we have the Chamber of Commerce, we have the government, we have the international development partners, all in one place to find solutions to issues that impede business environment. Now, it is important for us to understand what business environment is. A complex set of policies, legal, institutional, and regulatory, that provides or governs the business activities. For example, a tax policies regulates how taxes will be collected among the business community. Registration of businesses and how government authorities delivers on the mandate of the government for facilitating business environment. And business reforms entails regulatory policies and institutional frameworks or reforms that are basically intended to improve the business environment. For example, reducing costs and risks of business activities. Therefore, gender-sensitive business environment reform refers to changes in policies, legal, regulatory, and administrative frameworks that take into account socially constructed norms, behaviors, and relationships between men and women, and how this impacts on the different genders. So, what is this term we are calling women economic empowerment? For some of us who had mentioned in their objective or expectations that they would like to understand what women economic empowerment is about. So women economic empowerment is that ability for women to be able to participate equally in existing markets, access to and control over productive resources, access to decent work, control over their own time, lives, and bodies, and increased voice, agency, and meaningful participation in economic decisions at all levels. So that is when we say a woman is economically empowered. You are able to participate meaningfully in economic decision-making process at all levels. So why would we invest in women economic empowerment? There are various reasons as to why we should invest in women economic empowerment. It is not only morally imperative thing to do, but it is good business, right thing to do, and it actually makes economic sense. When you involve women in economic activities, the growth rates, it's evidently shown that it grows higher. It is evidently shown under the World Bank report that 2.4 billion working age women do not have economic opportunities equal to men, and that 178 countries still have legislations that prevents them from participating fully in the economy. With these statistics, it definitely justifies the reasons why we should invest in women economic empowerment. There is also a marked global difference between men and women's total expected life earning that is expected to be about US dollars 172.3 trillion. That is twice the world average gross domestic product. So you can imagine this gap. If we are to do justice to ourselves, we really have to invest in women economic empowerment so that we bridge this gap to enhance further the GDP. An action now to advance gender equality could add up to US dollars 13 trillion to the global GDP by 2030, according to the World Bank report. So PPDs for gender-sensitive, inclusive business environment reform is basically involving both genders and or integrating working groups that integrate women business associations or gender-sensitive business environment reform proposals with the sectoral working groups. So if we are aware of these people who are engaged in PPD process and are really including women, consulting women associations, and getting proposals and recommendations, including from informal businesses or women groups, that is when we say that PPD is a gender-sensitive PPD. So gender-sensitive PPD has the potential to contribute directly or indirectly to women economic empowerment. For example, the reforms that take into account gender inequalities normally help to eliminate legal and regulatory barriers that do not allow women to inherit or control assets, open a bank account, run their businesses, or work in specific sectors. There are other business environment reforms that benefit women, not because they are women, but because they benefit industries in which women are more concentrated. For example, we are aware in East Africa, majority of the women are concentrated in the textile and also the hospitality sector or informal trades. That is where the women are concentrated. So let me demonstrate how does a PPD, which is gender sensitive and inclusive, looks like. How does the structure looks like? We have key stakeholders that are engaged. I mean, the structure that is drawn here. We have the relevant ministry, which is the Ministry of Economy or Internal Affairs or Finance in each country that are mainly engaged in PPDs. We also have Ministry of Trade, Commerce, and Industries for some countries, And these are the ones normally we lobby a lot in order to provide our recommendations for addressing business environment and all women concerns in trade. So in this setting, there has to be a gender working group that normally takes into consideration women issues and provides technical informed recommendations and proposals on women issues. And then we have informal sector technical working group that deals with informal sectors and stakeholders that are in this particular sector, consults them and provides the concerns within the PPD process. Then we have international trade working group that provides international benchmark and all information as far as the trade and all issues being addressed within the PPD is concerned, to contextualize that international settings and also inform the PPD members how their issues are linked, and also promotion of their issues within the international trade scene is concerned. Then there has to be a secretariat that coordinates the different stakeholders within the PPDs. It's actually the technical wing that provides information and coordination of the different stakeholders within the PPD process. And this secretariat also has to be gender sensitive, with both men and women included in the secretariat that also takes into consideration the concerns and voices of women issues. Then we have gender sensitive business environment consultant that is able to support the secretariat and be able to provide recommendations and guidance on effective mechanisms of how the secretariat can deliver on the issues of women within the PPD process. And these consultants can also support business associations, business women chambers of commerce, and also chapters which are relevant for taking into consideration women issues. So this support can be in terms of consultancy, can be in terms of technical briefs, research, and also training, mentoring, and networking and advocacy. Then finally, we have international consultants, example, the EU-funded organization, World Bank, African Development Bank. In East Africa, we have the East African Development Bank. And also we have organizations like GIZ who also provide technical support in different areas where trade and PPD process can be concerned. So the next slide. So how are women organizations and associations engaged in PPD process for business environment reform? There are basically three ways that women associations can engage in PPD process. They can advocate for their concern directly to the organization involved in PPDs. For example, if the East African Business Council and also the Women in Business Council, the Women in Business platform is in a PPD process, then these associations or organizations can get in touch with the EWIP and All Business Council and provide their recommendations to be discussed in the PPD setting. But also women-owned businesses can advocate their concern to the business association, which then participates in the process. So like the business association can participate directly or give their concerns to the business association that participate directly in the PPD process. The parties to the PPD process can also consult directly the women-owned businesses, business associations, and informal business owners of their reforms. So they go directly to the ground, to the women, and ask them the relevant questions and present these issues in a PPD process. However, we should understand that women are less likely than men to be involved in the PPD process. Why? because women are underrepresented in the leadership positions in government, business associations, and Chamber of Commerce, who are the main stakeholders in the PPD process. So women are more likely than men to own informal or small businesses, which limits the number and proportion of women participating in the association, the Chamber of Commerce, and the PPD process. So what is the rationale for promoting gender-sensitive business environment reform? We have seen that women has various challenges, obstacles that promote them, that I mean, discourages them from participating in PPD process. So it is important that we are inclusive of women associations in a PPD process to ensure that the business environment reform is taking place in the right direction. Statistics shows that gender inequality has enormous cost. If we are to continue in this way, it is estimated that the gross domestic product loss per year as of 2014, due to the gender investment, was 11.4% in sub-Saharan Africa, which is so huge. And this cost is too much for women. So we have to bridge this gap, and that is why it is important to be inclusive in a PPD process and ensure that the business environment reforms is accommodative of women. We have also seen that increased financial inclusion, opportunities for women to access capital or to start and grow their business, it's still relatively low. And yet 3% of the early stage funding for women in 2013 went to female teams compared to 76% to the male teams. However, this is still low. 3% is very marginal. We need to increase this so that the business environment is gender inclusive. As we've also said, that to increase the global GDP by 2030 to 13 trillion, this could be an important aspect to the global GDP if we immediately start addressing gender equality. So gender equality also benefits to other women in other areas. For example, if we promote a gender-sensitive business environment, we'll ensure that the inclusion of women issues and gender lens in PPD is beneficial to women and society in areas such as income, boosting of education, and nutrition level of their children. Women business associations are also more likely to advocate to solutions to challenges faced mainly by women or small-scale owners. For example, in the Cambodia Women Association, they have led to advocacy for policy reform for SMEs free pass, which has benefited most of the SMEs who were mainly women-owned businesses. So adoption of the reforms that benefited women-owned businesses led to the establishment of Women Incubator Center that provided capacity building support and strengthening of the women associations and businesses. So these are some of the benefits and importance. Women in leadership positions are seen to make better decisions concerning other women because they prioritize equality and the reduction of gender gaps in different sectors. Managerial positions, quotas in public and private entities positively affects the financial results to those companies that are more gender inclusive. Women lawmakers tend to recognize and regulate issues that affect them as a whole, such as social problems. For example, in Rwanda and South Africa, on reproductive rights and land rights. These are basically the key concerns and discussions that I had to share with the participants on the gender-sensitive business environment through PPDs. So I will project a video that basically give an overview on this sector. I hope you will be able to see. Just a moment as I project my screen.
So Janice, sorry, I mean Joyce, sorry, we cannot hear the volume from the video. There's no audio.
Dialogue or PPD must ensure women's participation in discussions and decision-making to produce outcomes that promote women-owned businesses and gender equality. In this section, we will focus on how promoting the globalization and growth of women-owned businesses can enhance women's participation in the PPD process. Participation in PPDs to supporting gender-sensitive reforms. When women participate in decision and policy making, they are more likely to help women. Who are the main stakeholders in the PPD process? The first type of stakeholder is businesses that represent private sector voices and needs. These actors push for reforms that enhance the development of the business sector they represent. However, few women belong to this group because they are more likely to own micro businesses in the informal sector and are less likely to participate actively in business associations. The second type is business associations that represent business interests and advocate for reforms to improve operations, sales, and exports. Women's representation in the leadership of these organizations is low. Many factors account for this, including that often women do not have the time to dedicate to an association membership since they are often needed to care for children. The third stakeholder type is chambers of commerce. These business networks draw attention to private sector issues. They also promote informed decision-making processes to benefit the business community through policies and regulatory amendments. Women's low participation in chambers of commerce reflects prevailing social norms as well as their overall low participation in business. In some ACP countries, women-owned businesses account for fewer than 3% of all businesses. The fourth type of PPD stakeholder is government actors, such as ministers of trade, industry, and finance or local authorities. They interact with and listen to peers from the private sector to find common ground and adopt reforms. Women have been selected to hold high positions in government ministries such as culture, but not in more influential ones like economy, labor, and trade. In the Pacific Islands, only 6% of all ministerial members are women. In Sub-Saharan Africa and the Caribbean, women account for 25.9% and 29.5% of all parliamentarians, respectively. Finally, international organizations are third parties that can serve as consultants, community partners, mediators, and donors in PPD. Women's participation in international organizations has increased as a result of international agreements. These agreements further support common objectives, such as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that promote women's participation and gender equality.
Get back to the question. Thank you very much. I will now stop sharing my screen and then they should put back the presentation. But for now, we will now go into a brief quiz, having had the presentation and the video. And this will be led by my colleague, Marcia. So I would call the EABC team to allow Marcia to come on board.
Okay, we are allowing them to speak. Just give us a few moments.
Okay, all right. So in the meantime, participants can can ask questions in the group. You can ask your questions if there's any. Yes. So Marcia, if you will be allowed the floor to take us through these questions, just to test ourselves a little bit, if we have grasped what we have been conversing about. Yeah.
Joyce, please tell Joy Nkiru to raise her hand so that we can see her in the audience and give her the microphone. I think Marcia has already been given the mic.
I have it. Thank you.
Okay.
So good morning, everyone. It's good to join you from Barbados and the Caribbean. I want to very quickly take you through the quiz. Thanks, Joyce. You've been going very, very well, despite the tech issues. So the first question is, gender equality is costing sub-Saharan Africa significantly in terms of loss in GDP. And Joyce went through this, so true or false, we'd love you to write in the chat what do you think this is? Women are more likely than men to own micro businesses and are therefore left out in PPDs. True or false? And again, we'd love you to write in the chat so we can capture those. And the first person who gets it right. And so Joyce, I see one. Joyce, I see a response in the chat for the first, and it's coming from
Raphael. Yeah.
Can you see it? Yes?
Yes, I can see that.
Yes. Okay, great. And so do you want to respond to that, or should I just keep going through them?
You can go through it. You finish the session.
Okay. So the second one, women are more likely than men to own micro businesses and are therefore left out in PPDs. I'm seeing a response as well. The third, what is EAC partner state host an active, EAC partner host State hosts an active Women's Chamber of Commerce with best practices in gender-sensitive PPD processes. And we have a number of responses: representation in leadership, positions in government, women associations, and PPD processes.
Marcia,
Number 2, yes.
go a little bit
Somebody
slow.
put their hand
Let
up.
the participant answer question 2, and then we close and we go to question 3.
Okay, somebody has their hand up. I'm not too sure if this is for question 3.
Yes, there's a hand.
You'll need to perhaps give them the mic so they can
No,
respond.
just proceed. That was Joy's hand to show that she's
Oh.
there so that they can grant her the mic later on.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Can you change screens, please? Slides.
Yeah, they're still in, we are still now in question 2, that you go to question 3.
Which EAC partner state hosts an active Women's Chamber of Commerce with best practices in gender-sensitive PPD processes?
So here we
And
have some options. I will post the options here for participants to check. Yeah.
Are you posting them in the chat? Because I don't think I'm seeing from this side.
So we have the Republic of Tanzania, Republic of Uganda, Republic of Kenya, and Republic of Rwanda. So participants, which partner states host an active Women Chamber of Commerce with best practice in gender-sensitive PPD process? Kenya, I can see Republic of Kenya. 2. Any other participants? Rwanda, I see Rwanda coming up. Tanzania for Janice. Keep coming. All. Let's reflect a little bit. We are talking about gender sensitive PPD processes. Okay. So we have the responses here. Marcia, you will get back later on that. And then the question, the next question, do you mind to read?
The next question, number 4, is public-private dialogues are sufficient to promote women economic empowerment and facilitate business environment reforms for gender equality. True or false?
Okay, participants, public-private dialogues, is it true or false? I see true. 2, 3. 4 true. Yeah, there are 4 truths. Yeah, we give it a minute. We give it a second or so. Public-private dialogue are sufficient to promote women economic empowerment. Public-private dialogues are sufficient to promote women's economic empowerment and facilitate business environment reform. So there are your answers. There is no not true, no false. Everyone is saying yes. So you will give the answer later. You go to the last question.
Number 5. What measures can be taken to improve women economic empowerment in public-private dialogues? And we have 4 responses. We have or options: representation in leadership positions in government, women associations and PPD processes, improved access to financial support for women associations and businesses, sensitization, capacity building efforts targeting women organizations and business associations, or all of the above.
Yes, thank you. Participants, the floor is yours. There is all the above, all. I see all the above. Some are still thinking. We encourage everyone to post. Feel free. There's no right or wrong answers. We are all here to learn. For those who have mentioned their objective is to learn, so we are here learning from each other. Good. So Marcia, I give you 1 minute to wrap up the questions or respond to the answers. Yeah. Marcia, you're muted. Marcia? Okay, I can step in now to respond to the questions. And question 1. The answer was true. That gender inequality is costing sub-Saharan African an average of US $95 billion a year. And this I had mentioned in my presentation. So this is something that we really need to bridge the gap if by 2030 we are to improve the global GDP. Question 2, women are more likely than men to own micro businesses and are therefore left out of PPDs. So many people add the answer true, and I think it is correct, because the size of businesses limit the number and proportion of women participating in the association, Chamber of Commerce, and the PPD process. And also because of their small business size, they are not invited to join the PPD process. So they are left out in the process. So question 3, which was a bit an intrigue question, which partner states holds an active Women Chamber of Commerce with best practice in gender-sensitive business environment? We saw Rwanda, Kenya coming up, and one person mentioned Tanzania. The correct answer is United Republic of Tanzania, and that is none other than the Tanzanian Women Chamber of Commerce that has a PPD, a gender-sensitive PPD, and widely included women involvement, participation, and advocacy, including networking opportunities for women entrepreneurs. Then number 4, which public-private dialogues are sufficient to promote women economic empowerment and facilitate business environment? And majority said true. And to surprise you, the answer is actually false, because there are many PPDs which are not gender sensitive and leaves out women issues and all proposals, and also do not advocate for business environment reform that favors women. So the answer is gender sensitive public-private dialogues are more likely to promote women economic empowerment and facilitate business environment reforms. So I hope you've heard this loud and clear. Then the last, everyone got it. The answer is all the above. So thank you very much for participating in this session. And I think we now go back. Thank you, everyone. We go back to now have any questions. If there is any questions. You can ask us if we have left out anything or there is something burning about the session that we have discussed. You can thumb up. You can show your thumb up that everything is okay, or you can write in the chat. Yes, there's a hand by Janet. Can you give the floor to Janet?
Okay, we are giving her the mic.
Okay.
She has the mic now, she can speak.
Janet, can you speak? Janet, can you test your mic? EABC team, Janet is not able to speak. Janet, can you speak?
Reach out to her. Technical problems.
Or in the meantime, she can use the chat box and just put in a comment or question.
Janet, can you just write the chat box as they continue to allow you in? EABC team, please work on this so that at least the participants are able to talk.
We already gave her the mic. I think maybe if she has another challenge, but from our side, we already allowed her to speak. So maybe she can
Okay.
wait to just 1 minute.
So Janet, maybe you write down. Okay. As Janet writes down our question or concerns or comments, any other person that has their hands up and would like to speak? Okay. There seems to be no questions. Therefore, I will just proceed to the second session. Okay. Session 2, we will basically look at gender sensitive public-private for enhancing women economic empowerment. And here we will look, already we've heard from the video, the key players in the gender sensitive PPDs. They have also mentioned something about women's participation in PPD process as a representative of business associations. We will look at good practices or international practices by women organizations in promoting gender-sensitive public-private dialogue as an overview. And then the video will also shed some more light into that respect. And then we'll look at gender-sensitive data for successful PPDs. That is our last session, but we will have a break in between. So next slide. So the key players, I will not talk too much about it. The video has already elaborated on this. However, I just want to emphasize some strategies that private sector, women associations, and women entrepreneurs can use to strategize and navigate their ways around these stakeholders. For example, the business association. There are some influential businesses or business associations that we know are always part and parcels of the PPD process. So it is up to us as women associations or representative bodies to be able to use our strategy and network to get in touch with such business influential people or organizations that participate in PPD, so that whenever your issues are presented there, those people seem to represent your issues. Then the uptake of your recommendations is very high within the PPD process. Leave alone on the uptake, but also the fact that you can be part of the process of the PPD. Also, using the women business associations, you use the influential business associations that you know in your country or in the region, that when they speak, their voices are heard and feedback from the governments are provided. Because we learned from the video and also from my presentation that women and women associations are less represented in this PPD process or represented by this business association. So the strategy here is to win this business association on your side. Be able to convince them of your roles, your challenges, recommendations, so that they are able to present it and also convince the PPD partnership to take up this reform process. Then also using the Chamber of Commerce. Yes, you need to understand, now we are mentioning in each of the country, there are representative of Chamber of Commerce. Please get in touch with them, get to understand if they're involved in PPD process, and in particular, the sector that you're involved in. And ensure that they are aware of your cause and also your needs and the recommendations that need to be provided in the PPD process. Once you do this, rest assured that your recommendations and or even participation in the PPD process is assured. Then with the government, you also know these key government representatives that participate in PPD process, trade negotiations, and also high-level dialogue meetings. You ensure that you reach out to them using various means and ensure that you represent your evidence-based policy reforms, advocacy, or issues, recommendations, and they will be able and glad to represent your issues within the PPD process. And also with the international organizations that supports this PPD process, I think it's also important that you understand the people behind this process. Who are the people who are behind the PPD process? Who are funding? Who are supporting? In what capacity? Who are the consultants behind this? I think it's very important that you understand and get in touch with these individual consultants who would then be able to pick up your issues and represent forward. But also most importantly, these stakeholders can provide technical and financial support that will enable you and your issues to be presented within the PPD process. So there are some strategies that I have mentioned, which is also important that I highlight here. For example, in the three, the business association, businesses, and the Chamber of Commerce, it is important that we integrate women on the leadership positions in the PPD process. Because women, as I mentioned earlier, they represent women issues and they ensure that the reforms process takes into consideration women voices. So it is very important, and without having women represented in the leadership positions, it will be very hard for women associations to participate in the PPD process. We need to create and strengthen existing women associations so that they're able to speak with power and they're able to influence the PPD process. Capacity building, training in various issues like lobby, negotiations, advocacy, and even research so that they're able to provide evidence-based issues. in a PPD process. Create chapters at existing organizations so that women voices are heard, because the main organization might have wide arrays of issues to present. So you need to have chapters that represent various issues that impede or affect women entrepreneurs or informal cross-border traders. And some of this should include the informal businesses, because these are the voices that are hardly heard in the business setting and on the PPD process. Then strengthen existing organizations in terms of human resource, capital, finances, and also their ability to do advocacy. Then for the options of the government and international organizations, we also need to integrate more women into decision-making process, as has been emphasized in the video. This category of stakeholders have very limited women represented in the decision-making process at the ministries and the PPD process and in the international organization process. So we need to really emphasize on that. So the video has also talked about the challenges that women face and their potential solutions. So I will not go into this for the sake of time. So there are also some strategies to support the growth and sustainability of women organizations, which I think is very, very important, and also have been elaborated in the video, that we have to ensure that we attract more members into the membership of the associations, of the organizations, to ensure that it is strong. When you have many voices speaking for a particular issues, the likelihood of their concern being heard is very high. So we need to attract more women. We need to ensure that we provide capacity buildings by providing training, networking, and advocacy to ensure that the women associations are able to have their capacity enhanced to mainstream gender issues in all aspects, and also be able to champion women voices in a PPD process. Advocating and championing of the women issues. We need to have more champions within the PPD process that can champion the issues of women in the process, and also advocate for business environment reform that favors or takes into account women issues. We need to ensure that we have opportunities to present or represent informal businesses, which is the majority of the women businesses in East Africa. So these have to be given a chapter and also heard and consulted in the PPD process. So how, in terms of agenda-sensitive PPDs, what must it entail? We need to include women in the process as policymakers, as representative of the Women Association, but also as stakeholders in the PPD process. We need to include gender-sensitive business environment reforms, reforms that address the constraints and concerns of women. For example, long bureaucracy, for example, gender insensitive policies that does not consider women businesses, lack of finance, issues of capacities, and also policies that limit women participation in business forums. So this must meet one or both of these process. Reforms that benefit women directly, example, the laws and regulations, and reforms that benefit women because they address sectors in which they are overrepresented. Yeah. So how does a PPD structure looks like? If we envision a PPD, how do you see this being set up? What are the key components? What are the main issues that must be addressed? So here we have a checklist that guides us in terms of the structure, the objectives, what must be included, the management, the facilitations, and the outcome of a PPD process. So for example, in terms of the objectives, The PPD process should ensure that the objective is gender sensitive. It includes women issues and explicitly address gender equality. So you have to have an objective of a PPD that is inclusive of women issues. The structure should ensure that women are part of the process, either in consultation, either in the discussions, either in the leadership, and or in the participation process. We have to ensure that also within the men who are part of the process, they are also champion of women issues within the PPD process. Hence, I refer you to the strategy I mentioned earlier. You have to ensure that you are knowledgeable of some of these influential PPD process personalities. There are some business owners who are very influential and they can actually champion the women issues. They may not be very visible, but when they speak, the government listens to them. So these are the influential people that the women associations and organizations needs to look out for. In terms of facilitations, the facilitation has to ensure that both men and women issues are considered in the PPD process, and that the facilitator is neutral and all understands the issues of women and it's being addressed in the process. Then the output of the PPD also should ensure that the recommendations are not only favoring men, but also women issues are part and parcel of the outcome of the PPD, so that women are not left out in the process. The PPD process also has to ensure there is outreach and communication that also targets women issues and also focuses on the sustainability and contribution of women in the PPD process. It has to be gender balanced. This has to be communicated in a gender sensitive manner that does not put women in a difficult position. Then the PPD process has to ensure that different women stakeholders across the region or the country are consulted. Women are also diverse in their setting. There are those who are advanced, there are those who are middle, there are those who are at a lower level. So this PPD process has to ensure that it has taken into consideration the various levels of women and also in terms of consultation. Then the PPD process also has to ensure the sector-specific areas that touches more on women and also include women-specific issues that's faced by the participants in this process. So it has to be also sector-specific. In terms of international role, it has to be focused on the various actors. There has to be a gender balance in the participation in international forum. So it doesn't have to exclude women and women associations or their issues when it comes to international representation. So it has to be included. Then the PPD process also has to ensure that in terms of conflict or crisis or reconciliation process within the PPD process, women are part and parcels of the process. As we are aware, we know how women contribute to conflict resolutions and how their strategy can also bring proper resolutions at the table. Women are given seats and they should be seen to be represented in this process. So in development partners, we have to ensure that they are proactive and they are in promoting gender sensitive lens as part of their support in the PPD process. They have to be neutral and they also have to ensure that they are not leaving a particular gender outside the PPD framework. So this is a main tenet or structure of a gender sensitive PPD process. So looking at the PPD process that you are aware of and you know within the region, you have to ensure that you cross-check and reflect that all these elements are reflected to ensure a gender-sensitive PPD process. So there are some best practice international gender-sensitive PPDs for women economic empowerment that I would like to briefly touch on to give you some examples. The Papua New Guinea Business Coalition for Women Association was established in 2014, and basically it was done to respond to the rising cases of gender-based violence that was affecting the normal functioning of the mining industry. The objective was to create awareness and prevent sexual harassment and gender-based violence in the workplace. The services included evaluating gender equality in enterprises and advising on and implementing policies that reduce gender-based violence. The results was very overwhelming in terms of supporting or reducing gender-based violence. The coalition itself became the principal voice in Papua New Guinea business community in terms of advocating for PPD for gender equality, and in specific against gender-based violence in the workplace. It has become the advocacy platform in terms of gender-based violence in the country, and several other reforms that has come as a result of their advocacy issues. The Tanzania Women Chamber of Commerce is one other gender-sensitive PPD that has promoted women economic empowerment in East Africa. Established in 2005, it brought together industry-based women businesses, companies, and sole proprietorship associations. It works with public and private sector organizations and provides mentoring and orientation to women in business so that they can advocate and push for policies for women entrepreneurs to grow. The services are advocacy, networking, marketing, and financial linkages and capacity development. As a result, that you will also hear in the video, 10,000 women in Tanzania without restriction on sectors have been able to join the membership. They have also maintained 7 regional chapters, 11 platforms for women in cross-border trade, and 14 women sectoral associations. They have provided networking opportunities, advocacy opportunities, both at national, regional, and international platforms. Another example is the Cambodia Women Entrepreneurs Association. This association is outside the SCP countries and also specifically East African countries, but it is one such best practice women association that is gender sensitive. It was established in 2009, and the objective was to raise women consciousness about the need for business environment reform and to advocate for the interest of the women business owners. And mind you, in such time, there weren't any women associations at that time that would advocate for women business environment reform. So the coming up of this association that provide networking, advocacy, informal businesses in the association, capacity development and representation of members in the different working groups. It has led to the full establishment of this association, and this association has become one of the members of the Cambodian government private sector forum, and it has provided funding for the women members, and it has officially provided policy reforms, which is basically tax-exempt policy for the importation of silk, and finance several women associations from the development partners. To date, as of 2021, the membership has reached 1,000, and the forum has 8 forum committees that represent members in the government private sector forum. But most importantly, this PPD a Women Association has a representative of the informal businesses and consults this sector a lot and represent their issues in the government private sector forum. So it is one such gender sensitive best practice examples that we can borrow from. Other reforms that is gender sensitive and promoting women economic empowerment are those that have been implemented by the Investment Climate Facility, which has been presented earlier by Christina. So it is now upon us, the business associations and women entrepreneurs in East Africa, to tap this opportunity by requesting for support and ensure that your PPD needs are supported. So this is the end of my slide for session 2. We will break a little bit to play a video and then come up with some quizzes. And here I will invite my colleague, Joy Kiro. Can you raise your hand so that the secretariat give you the mic to lead us through this after the video. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. I think we had already given Joy, we had given Joy the mic. I think she can speak. She can just unmute.
Okay, allow me to play the video and then Joy will come in.
So I play the video. Okay. You can hear it.
Signing PPD with a gender message to promote increasing women power. Gender sensitive organization rural business displays workers or represent.
Sorry, Joyce, we cannot hear the audio from the video.
Okay, let me start again. I don't know. Okay, it went off. I have to leave mine open. Okay, let me play again. Can you hear me?
Joyce, we can hear you, yes, but the video.
Can you hear the video?
No.
We try.
Signing PPD in the gender nexus will be to promoting leadership power. Gender sensitive equipment must be community process for a significant or representatives of given circumstances.
Joyce, maybe, sorry, Joyce.
This is about
Emily is going to display. Maybe you can try to mute your computer so that you don't have the feedback voice when the video plays.
Can you now hear me?
Yes, we can. But I'm saying when you are playing the video using another device, make sure your device the volume is down on your device so that it does not echo on the other device, which I think Emily is. Yeah.
Science is a gentle discipline and really of the promoting economic power. Gender sensitive PPD must include legal process as policymakers or representatives of business organizations. In addition, it must include gender sensitive business environment reform to foster women's economic empowerment. We will now look at some examples of good practices employed by business associations to promote women's economic empowerment among their members within the context of PPD. The Backward Business Coalition for Women is a member-based organization established by a group of government and non-government agencies. It was created in response to the rising cases of gender-based violence affecting the mining industry. The coalition aims to create awareness and prevent sexual harassment and gender-based violence in the workplace. It also plays an important role in supporting the recruitment, promotion, and training of women employees and leaders. The coalition offers various activities and services, including evaluating gender equality in enterprises and advising on how to implement policies to reduce gender-based violence. It teaches companies how to carry out gender safety audits while giving them measuring tools. It trains both men and women to recognize signs of sexual harassment and how harassment may influence the organization and its employees. It also offers development and mentoring opportunities to women employees and women-owned businesses that demonstrate great growth potential. Finally, it develops research that provides key data for advocating for gender equality in women. Private sector support has greatly strengthened the coalition. It has now become the principal voice in Papua New Guinea's business community, advocating in TPD for gender equality and against gender-based violence in the workplace. This business coalition positively impacts women by promoting awareness, changes in behaviors, and actions in business against gender-based violence. For example, in 2020, it launched a 2-year study encouraging the private sector to address family, and workplace sexual violence. In 2005, a group of women created the Tanzanian Women's Chamber of Commerce. They aim to bring together various types of women's businesses. These women's chambers work with private and public sector organizations to advocate for policies that allow women to grow their businesses. It cooperates with key players like the Tanzanian government in creating programs to increase women's economic empowerment and advocating for regulations helping women's businesses. It offers networking through events where women can share opinions, experiences, and information about entrepreneurship. This Chamber of Commerce aids women in pursuing self-financing opportunities by supporting and encouraging business initiatives. Finally, regarding capacity building, the Tanzania Women's Chamber of Commerce provides training to help women enhance the potential of their businesses. It focuses on areas such as business formalization and women's participation in forums. The training also focuses on linking women's organizations with key actors and supporting them to promote reforms to address their concerns. Chamber currently supports 10,000 women in Tanzania in all business sectors. It has 27 regional chapters, 11 platforms, and 4 sector-specific associations. Its advocacy work has led more women to participate in the business forum at various levels. This is due in part to the organization's work on increasing information access in areas like tax and general compliance, regulation, and collection protection procedures. Along the same lines, its advocacy work within PPD has pushed adoption of reforms to ease starting and closing a business in Tanzania. The Chamber was a key player in implementing these new reforms and communicating them to businesses. Although Cambodia is not part of the ACP countries, the Cambodia Women Entrepreneurs Association is one of the best examples of good practices regarding the creation and strengthening of women's business associations. The association's origins date to 2009 after the World Bank's leader official observed Cambodia's exclusively male PPD known as the Government Private Sector Forum. The association grew out of a series of networking events created to connect women. These events provided a forum to raise women's consciousness about the need for business environment reform. The association secured donors who provided both funding and communications and advocacy training and helped the organization to join and become an active member of Cambodia's government's private sector forum. The association offers business networking and advocacy training in 4 areas on behalf of members. First, it provides local and international mentoring and training. It represents members' interest in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce. The association includes members in various government private sector forum work.
Okay. Thank you. I think this is the part that I wanted us to project. And I think we now go to the small quizzes and then we go to the last session. So next slide.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. Thank you for all the wonderful presentations. We've really been enjoying everything here. Okay, let's test our knowledge over this quiz. First of all, we have to start with number one. It says, which strategies would you support? Will support the growth and sustainability of women's organizations as institutions, promoting women's economic empowerment in PPD. So there are answers listed below. Can you just choose one? Is it strengthening and promoting good management? Or is it creation of unique communication channels for training and access to information? Or is it inclusion of women in informal business in women's organization? Or is it all of the above answers? Just pick one and put on the chat. We give you 1 minute to do that. Then we go to the next question. Okay.
Good. We are seeing responses from the participants. 3 of them have posted all the above, and all of them have actually posted all the above.
Okay. Let's go on and give more people a chance to put more answers. So
Yes.
The next question, yes. The next question says, men can support women's engagement for a gender-sensitive public-private dialogue. Do you agree? Is it true or is it false? Can you just choose one and put on the chat, please? Then let's go to the next question. Are people? I can't see any answer.
I am yet to post. They were still responding. There are 2 false. There is a false and there is a true, and then there is for the first question, there is true and false. Now the second question. Men can support women engagement for gender-sensitive PPD. True or false? Participants.
Yeah, I see people
True
saying
or false?
true. Somebody said false. Raphael said false. Somebody said true. Frank said true.
Yeah. Next question.
Okay, Which element is not important when formulating a gender-sensitive PPD? Is it post-conflict crisis or recovery? Or is it sector specificity? Or is it budget? Or is it mandate and institutional alignment? Or is it outreach and communication? What do you think? Which of the elements is not important? Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you, Joy. Proceed.
Okay, so which element is not important when formulating a gender-sensitive PPD? Choose one and put on the chat, please. Okay, somebody said budget.
Rafael says number 3, budget. Frank said post-conflict. Janet said budget.
Good answers.
Yes.
Good answers. So we go to question number 4. There is sufficient data about women in PPD processes that can inform actors pushing for increased women participation in East Africa. Do you think there's sufficient data about women in the PPD processes? If you think so, let's have you say true. If you think it's not so, then say false. Let's have your answers on the chat, please. We're looking at the chat board.
Janet says false.
Yes, Janet says false.
Khadija Ali says false. There's also Raphael says false. Okay. Isaac says false. Masika said false. All the answers are actually false.
Okay, good. Do we have more questions?
No, that is all.
That's about it. Okay, so yes. Let's go to the answers. Let's go back to the answers, please. Yes, the question number 1 there says the answer is all of the above. So we can see most of us got it right. And then we ask you to give yourself a round of applause for getting it right. You're really listening. Yes. Then the next question to it, the answer there, sorry, the screen is just moving up and down for me here. So the next question there, the answer is true. yes, men can really support women's engagement for successful PPDs through acts like changing perception of certain social norms. And then I saw somebody asking a question there on the chat board, you know, how we think PPD can help in changing some of these social norms. I think when we go through this question, we'll see that when we get the involvement of men, we can change their mindset. You know, culture is not really static. It's something that could be changed over time. And then again, we've been able to sign on to some international protocols. All we need to do is to bring them on board and domesticate them and push for such things to be made into policies that can support women's engagement in business. So I think that answers that question. Then we go to the next question, which was on the issue of which element is not important for formulating a gender-sensitive PPD. And then we had people saying budget. Budget is actually the answer. So I think Frank also said budget. So you're right. Then again, we have the next one on data, which is asking whether data is sufficient. Definitely, we know that we don't have sufficient data so far. That's why we're advocating for an increase in research, an increase in data on issues pertaining to women's economic empowerment and then women's participation in PPDs. You know, these are the answers. So we commend everybody who had participated in answering the questions and say, give yourselves a round of applause. And then let's commend our facilitator too. She's been doing a very nice work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joy, for that break in terms of quizzes and for giving the participants an active part and review of what we have touched in session 2. And thank you, participants, for the active participation. That is very meaningful and encouraging to understand that you are really grasping these concepts and also understanding this gender-sensitive public-private dialogue. We go to session 3, which is basically shorts, and it is talking about gender-sensitive data for successful PPD, its collection, usage, and measurement. Now, as has been said by my colleague Joy and also from the data information that I mentioned earlier, the gender-sensitive data for PPD is a very scarce resource that so far we have not been able to get much on this. However, I just want to give us a quick understanding of what gender data or gender statistics is all about. It is about data that is disaggregated by sex, or as well as data that affects women and girls exclusively or primarily. Gender data provides meaningful insights, basically to help to understand the difference in well-being across women and men, and in particular girls and boys, as well as actionable information that can be used to advance policy reform that could address the disparities. So this is where we got this aspect, and we said, as Joy has mentioned, there are main challenges on data availability on women participation, especially in PPD process. The available one that has been done by ICRA facilities still talk about the aspect of women engagement, but does not go so much deep in terms of the actual participation in different PPDs and also in different countries, especially in terms of capacity strengthening process of women organization, how women participation in PPD processes is taking place, or outcomes and outputs that comes from a gender-sensitive practice are adopted or are they implemented, and the databases inform decisions or make arguments for women increased participation in PPD process. So these levels of information that is very relevant for enhancing PPD process is actually not available. However, there are some researches that have been done by ICRA facilities that we have linked references in this presentation to guide participants to these readings and find out how much the data that has been researched provides analysis in women's engagement in PPD process. But it does not go in depth in terms of how women have benefited from the PPD process, as the outcome been successful for them, the PPD process inclusive, and how this being done case by case by the in different countries. So there are some available data that provides us some examples to show insights on how engagement of women can actually support PPD process. One such example of database is the Interparliamentary Union that provides database on percentage of women in national parliament. It contains information on global and regional averages and the type of chambers that these women and women speakers in presiding in parliaments represent. The women speakers in national parliament and their regional average and in the upper chambers. However, this does not provide disaggregation of data by countries, especially how many are men, how many are women, but just provides that brief information as far as women is concerned. The link is provided for further information. The other is the data on the World Bank data that provides information categorized by 14 topics that provide statistics and sex disaggregated data on a variety of configurations, ranging from employment, time use, leadership, norms and decision-making, entrepreneurships, and assets. However, this does not provide important resources or information as far as the ministries that is relevant for providing PPDs and how these sectors are functioning within such ministries. And yet these are the key important ministries that provide information on PPD process. The other is the UN Women Interparliamentary Union that provides information on women in politics and basically looks at ranking women in government, executive, and parliamentary position and provides percentage of women in the ministries and portfolio held by women in ministries. Again, here, the Ministry of Trade, Chamber of Commerce, Industries is not catered for or does not provide overview in such sector. And this leaves out the more important ministry where decisions and participation on PPD is concerned. The Women, Business and the Law for the World Bank provides business and legal information that women can access economic opportunities in 190 economies, including ACP countries. The data is available since 1971 to 2022, and it has 5 aspects of the law and score across 8 indicators. It focuses on entrepreneurship, access, assets, pay, mobility, and workplace. The interpretation of the law may vary from one country to another, as it may explicitly contain in it. However, the study assumes that every surveyed woman resides in economy, main business city. So it leaves out the rural women or the most vulnerable people that needs to be included in the PPD process. The link also is provided. However, these databases has important information on how women and women leadership is so far available in the parliament, ministries, government, and political affairs. And we said having women in political leadership is one of the strategies that can support the promotion of gender-sensitive PPD process in East Africa. So it is very important that we see more women joining the leadership position. So the ICRC report, promoting women organization in public-private to foster women economic empowerment in PPD is provided in this link, and the same for International Finance Corporation and the World Bank. It is therefore important for us to know that data for women participation in PPD process is very scarce. However, we need to apply a gender lens to all business environment process to understand and promote women participation in PPD process. PPD process that are existing or are in the process of being made should include data for women-owned, led, formal and informal businesses for it to be a gender-sensitive PPD. It must include secondary data disaggregated by gender to enable understanding on the performance and the status of women in that PPD process. PPD needs to include the gender dimension by improving representation of all women in various interest groups, as well as by collecting data and emphasizing monitoring the participation of women and their role in the PPD process. So it is a call for the business associations and women representation that is attending this meeting from now henceforth to ensure that they are collecting information on the women participation in PPD process, the outcome that has so far been achieved successfully in a PPD process, and the engagement level of the women in a PPD process, and how the process has been inclusive of the women in the various sectors and including informal businesses. So that is how data can then be available to provide such examples and best practice in form of data for gender sensitive business environment. So I will come to the close of session 3, and therefore we are late by 20 minutes, 28 minutes when we started. So we still have some time, which we request that participants endure so that we do this small group work. Will take us basically 10 minutes and we go for a close. So Joy will lead us into this interactive group breakaway session. The questions are here. And we would ask the Secretariat of the Business Council now we have to be a little bit innovative in terms of participation, because the list of participants that we got are not actually the actual participants now participating. So therefore we would ask that we just invite the number of people, we divide it into 3, and then we go into the different groups.
So, Joyce, thank you for the presentation. And as you have rightly noted, we are very far off the time that we had promised before. So we have, while you were going on with the presentation, my colleague Gift was setting up members into the 3 groups, depending on the members who had joined the meeting at the time. The number has reduced, but I believe we have at least some members who will be going to these 3 groups. So what we will do is we will just allow that breakaway session to go, and it will be strictly for 10 minutes. So from there, we will close the groups and everyone has to return to this main group. And maybe just for guidance, I know it will be you, Joyce, and then we'll have Joy, and I think your colleague Marcia. You'll be in either of the groups. So you'll be moderating those groups to get the deliberation of those particular groups. So I hope that is
great.
Enough.
Just divide us into the 3 groups and we will go to the different groups.
Yes, we have already done that, and my colleague Gift will just momentarily divide us into those groups and we'll be going there. So it is strictly for 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, my mic is working. Joyce, remember Joshua Fort is with me in my group, yeah? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Frank, note that Ford will be going to the group where Marcia is.
Okay, we will try that, but I don't know if that is how we have arranged, but we'll see if we can handle that. Otherwise, Marcia will just have to bear on her own. But let's see if we can be able to do that.
Sorry, my dear. Gender mainstream. Yes.
Yes, gender mainstreaming and also gender analysis.
Okay.
Sorry, Joyce. Sorry to interrupt. We are back in the main group.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you. I will write that as we go back to the main group here. So you let the group number 2 to start the presentation as we finalize the writing of our group. Okay, we go back to the group. Okay, welcome back to the main group participants. Thank you very much for the group work. And now we are requesting my colleague Ford to project the board so that we can, the mural board, so that we are able to project the different group presentations and feedback. I request Joy to lead us to read out the group. Each of the group had a representative who can agree to make their presentation.
Yeah, I think we are supposed to start with your group is group 1, but we're going to group 2.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
group
can
2
hear
was
you.
handled by, yeah, group 2 was handled by Marcia. So, Marcia, I don't know if you picked anybody as your group leader who will present. If not, you could give us a short brief of what was agreed in your group. Marcia, are you there, please?
I am here. I hope my tech holds because somehow it's going in and out. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can,
we
hear,
can
you.
hear you.
Let me project the board. Let me project the board.
Okay, great. So we decided that we were choosing the agriculture sector, and we spoke very quickly around some of the key components that we think that would constitute or would be included in a PPD. Can you make that just a little bigger for me, please, Mr. Fort?
Yes, I'm the one sharing. Let me show you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just press the plus sign at the bottom.
Yes.
And that should make it bigger.
Can you see?
Make it bigger, please. I don't have the best eyes, so.
Okay, can you see?
Okay, one more plus.
Okay.
Right. Okay, this should do it. So we looked at having a mission statement that, of course, speaks explicitly to how many women would be included, what is going to be the gender separation, not separation, but inclusion, and also the equality issues in terms of how women are going to be mainstream treated, educated, put in leadership positions, and men as well. Looked at some of the rules and regulations concerning the organization, and also looking at ensuring that women are in leadership roles, not just as members, yeah, that they have agency. Also, we looked at ensuring that there is a definite terms of reference. Of course, that terms of reference would have all of these things that we're talking about, and the mission statement. We look at output in terms of what it is that we really do want this PPD to do, and it is to ensure that the agricultural sector becomes more robust, more sustainable, and of course, that means ensuring that women are engaged productively as men are in it. We looked at some of the people we definitely would need to have in this PPD, and we talked about very, very quickly, we just looked at the Ministry of Agriculture and all the business development, the farmers, corps and organizations that deal with agriculture, whether it's women or men. And then we looked at building partnerships. What kind of partnerships would this PPD need to build outside of the what is there already? Monitoring and evaluation. Someone brought that up, which is excellent, because we need to monitor this PPD. Lobbying and advocacy on behalf of farmers, that needs to be a significant part of it. And there are a few other things, but I think those are the key things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Joyce. Thank you. I'm sorry, Marcia. Thank you for that. I think we don't need any other explanation because of time. We have to go to the next group so that everybody will be able to discuss what they were able to come up with. So, Joyce, I don't know if your group is ready with presentation.
Yeah, we are
Okay.
ready. You are ready?
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
our group, let me go to our group. I can move. Okay. Our group, we were looking at the challenges and recommendations to women inclusive participation in PPD process in East Africa. And the following were some of the challenges that were mentioned by the participants. One is underrepresentation of women in leadership position in PPDs in East Africa. The other is lack of finances and stability, financial stability of women association in East Africa. The other was unequal access to critical information on PPD process in East Africa, which limits their participation, women and women association. The lack of data or statistics on the various sectors that women are engaged in makes it difficult to advocate in a PPD process. So they propose the following recommendations: that one, there is need to have targeted inclusion of women in PPD leadership and process in East Africa, to capacitate the women associations in East Africa to be able to be stable financially, so that they are able to conduct regular PPD that includes women issues. Provide timely information on PPD process through accessible channels, and facilitate collation of data and information in various sectors where women are involved to inform advocacy in PPD process. Then finally is that gender mainstreaming and gender analysis has to be done to ensure that the PPD process is inclusive and takes cognizance of the gender aspects. So that was the group work for group one. Thank you. Enjoy it. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have to present for my group. I had wanted one of our group members to do that, but because we were not able to use the mirror board because, you know, we couldn't really, it wasn't really working out. So I had to put it down on paper. For the group three, we handled the issue on data. And then what we did was, the question was, what is the status of gender sensitive data in PPDs in East Africa, and how can this be improved? So on the issue of status, first of all, we agreed that gender sensitive data is inadequate in East Africa. We agreed that we have limited, very limited gender focused data. And then we said we have this difficulty in data collection because most processes of data collection are not done with gender lens. So that makes it quite inadequate having, you know, data that we can say is adequate in East Africa, you know. Then the other question that came up with that same group is how can we have an improved data sensitive PPDs? So we agreed that one, there is need for us to have a sensitization of the policy making bodies, people who are involved in policies, there's need for us to sensitize them to understand the essence of having gender-focused policies. Then when we're able to get them sensitized, we will also move down to sensitizing the women who are also practitioners in the business environment. So when we now sensitize women, what we were also talking about is that as we sensitize the women, we also need to support them. And when we talk about support, what we mean is that we should first of all think about capacity building, particularly for women business associations. So we're encouraging that there should be formidable women business coalitions, which will stand as the bodies we can sensitize. And when we sensitize them, we support them with tools in terms of capacity building to make them understand how to carry out research, how to conduct data collation, how to report on data issues. And after doing that, we should also sensitize women on the need for proper registration of businesses. Because one of the problems we have with data is that most women engage in informal business. And when they are in informal business, nobody really knows what they are doing. Nobody understands what actually is being done by the women in terms of businesses. So in that way, a lot of women are involved, but they are not captured. So we say there's need for us to also sensitize and support women with their business registrations so that we can really get proper records of what they do. Then we also went further to say that we need to educate them also on financial literacy, because most times when you do business, when you talk about PPDs, when you are not involved in the real board, nobody will really understand your economic value. But when women are educated on such issues and supported on how to get involved, it will be easy for them to be on the right track, and it will be easy to capture their data, because you don't go into somebody's house to capture data. You have a record where you look for the data from. So these are some of the things we talked about. And, we ended up saying that, when we get all these indicators on board, we'll have to be able to improve the data on women's participation in PPDs and women's participation in within the business environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joy, and for the group. Let's clap for ourselves and the groups that have done wonderful jobs. We have managed to get good points that really provides way forward and challenges on how to move forward in terms of gender-sensitive PPDs and also improving and participation of women association in PPD process, as well as improving data for improved gender-sensitive PPDs in East Africa. I think with these points and suggestions, this would be a first step for the Women Association, EWIP, and the East African Business Council to actually sit and reflect on the proposals of the participants and design a way how they can improve women participation and engagement in PPDs in East Africa, and also established where need be new areas for women to engage, especially in formal business sectors where majority of the women are not included because their business is not known and it is not registered or formal. So thank you so much once again. And at this juncture, my colleague goes back to the presentation, and then we move to the last session of our session today. This was the group work, and now we are moving to the last part, which is basically closing remarks, but we wanted to give just one or two floor to any participants with a burning question, or if there is need for any proposals or comments that we have left out from the group work, if it is burning seriously, that you have this moment before we go to the closing remarks and session. We're giving you 1 minute. You can raise up your hand or you can write in the chat.
I hope you can hear me, but while someone is writing, Joyce, there was a question early on in the chat.
Yes.
I'd like to ask, for the sake of understanding, how can gender-sensitive PPDs help to overcome cultural barriers and social norms to perpetuate gender inequality in business environment?
Okay, very good question. How can PPD remove cultural barriers that impede women engagement in PPD process or promotes women economic empowerment? That's a very good question, and it is really takes us back because that is the main constraint that perpetuate or inhibit or hinder women participation, not only in PPD process, but also in women associations and also in advancing their business aspect because of several reasons. So the question is asking us the other way around, how PPD can actually remove such a barrier. Now, these are some of the examples that we have given. A PPD process can set a benchmark for inclusion of women issues if there are gender sensitive representatives as champions, if there are gender sensitive working groups that takes care of gender issues or women concerns, in this case, trying to ensure that women who do not have voices have issues that are tabled in a PPD process. So in this example, the women who are shy or have lack of agencies or are not able to participate fully because they are being denied positions to represent their issues in PPDs can then have their issues raised by those who are gender sensitive and are engaged in PPD process. However, the aspect of cultural barriers can be addressed and tackled at various levels. At women themselves as individuals, by getting education, capacity building themselves so that they are able to understand what they should do, where they should be, how they can participate, what they need to do to improve their participation and all their businesses and be able to participate confidently in PPD process or business forums where women issues and all businesses are discussed. Also be able to enlighten yourself and partner with the people who are advanced in a PPD process or also in business association who are therefore able to pick up your issues. Lastly, you can also be able to work with champions or people who are very influential in PPD process to ensure that your issues are not left out, even though you are not able to participate yourself. So all this can also support participants or women who are being brought down by cultural barriers to be able to participate in PPD process effectively. My colleague Joy also has something to add on to that. Joy, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Just a little. You've said it all, but I need to add a little about on this. Let's understand that PPD is all about dialogue. It's all about negotiations. It's all about lobbying. It's all about making people understand your burning issues, why it has been so, and why it needs to be changed. It's all about policy redress, policy reform. Who are we talking about on the other side? We are talking about the other men, who we're talking about the youth, the men, every other member of the society. So if we're able to get the right people on board on a gender sensitive PPD, we'll be able to convince them on those burning cultural issues. Culture is not static, it could be changed, like we mentioned earlier. And then when we are able to convince them, it's a matter of sitting down together to iron out what these, cultural norms, norms had been doing to people. What are their, the disadvantages of having such on board? What should be the benefits if that culture is changed? What should be the benefit to the society if there's a redress on those cultures? So if we're able to understand, to make them understand that these are the problems that we've been facing, they will be able to sit together, and then look at the policies and see how such things could be changed. That's why the issue of data, the issue of having your information right is always very necessary before you engage into any PPD. So once you're able to identify some of those things, put them down on paper, get the right people to speak for you, get the right people who had also witnessed such things in their lives to come, maybe as examples, during some of those PPDs to present issues. You know, these are human beings that we are talking about. They are policy makers. Get the right people who can influence the policy makers to change policies. And then also get the support of documents that they had signed on to. You know, like we mentioned, international protocols and even some state laws, which are not even being brought before us, you know, brought on board because somebody is sitting on it. So if we're able to raise up these issues, have them on board, have them handy, and present them during dialogue, we'll be able to make them understand the essence of changing some of these policies, changing some of those cultural, you know, barriers. And then when they are changed, they are brought into policies that it becomes a kind of something that must have to be done, or at least that should be followed by people. So in such way, we'll be able to handle some of those cultural barriers, remove them and move on and get the women, or get, you know, women where they're supposed to be in terms of businesses. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Joy, for substantially elaborately on the mechanisms on how PPD can actually address that barrier. Thank you so much. I hope your question is answered. I saw some thank you somewhere in the chat. I hope you have fully answered, and thank you for that very question. So let's go now to the last part of the questions. I would like to thank all who have persevered to participate until the last session of this training. It has been very wonderful to have you on board and discuss this very important topic. And now, before we go into the last word of the closing remarks, I would like to mention that, can you project please? Sorry. I would like to share with the participants the last part of the post-training survey questions, which we will send to all participants, including those who had left earlier for one reason or the other, that there will be a survey link that is available here. You can see on the slide that it's going to be sent, and it is open already as we talk. And this survey question will, I will ask my colleague Emily to post on the chat already, so that those who are here can already start. It will not take you such a long time. It will just give you a small time to fill this survey question. It is very important for the ICR facility, GIZ, and us as the facilitator, give us feedback on how the session has been, how we have been, areas of improvement, and any other suggestions that you may have for us to consider moving forward, any other proposals that you might have not been able to present during the session. So you can have the opportunity to write and add any other information that we need to know. The deadline of this survey, yes, Christina is actually posting on the chat and urging everyone to fill this survey because it's very important. The deadline is until the 31st of this month, but we will close a little bit earlier. So I will request the EABC Secretariat and Janice from East African Women in Business to share this survey link widely to all the participants who have attended earlier on and left because of other reasons, to also fill in so that we have as comprehensive feedback as much as possible on this training. This is also the opportunity for the participants to be able to provide any request for support that may be needed to the ICR facility team, represented here by Joy. So take this as a very important last part of the activity so that we can get the feedback from you. Therefore, without further ado, I would like to request one participant to give us a vote of thanks or just any word, comments or last minute feedback to the facilitators and to the group and to EABC and EWIP, and then we will ask either EABC or EWIP to provide us with a closing remarks. Me and my team, Emily, who has supported us, Ford from the Barbados, and my colleague Joy, right now in America, and Marcia from Barbados. We would like to say thank you so much, and to all the participants for being a great participants, for actively engaging. We have taken all your contribution in group and also your questions that you may have. If you can still continue to write in the chat, we will be able to get back to you personally with your questions. But we thank you so much and urge you to fill the last surveys that we can improve and also get on your support for the capacity building as far as PPD is concerned. Thank you so much, and I would like to see the hand of the volunteer from the participants. Joy, please put your hand down. You still have the hand from the last session so that we can have participants put their hands up as well.
In the meantime, Joyce, just remind or let participants know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that we will share the link to the Miro board so that they can go on and view the contents from the workshop.
Great. Thank you, Marcia, for reminding me for such important thing. Yes, we will share the comprehensive presentation. We will share the videos, the link to the videos. We will share the Miro board, which has quite all the information that we've been talking about, program, the group activities. We will share the quizzes. It has the entire discussions of the session. We will share those, and also the interactive questions that we've shared with you so that you can reflect over it and the answers and the responses to them. So therefore, at the moment, we have a hands up. Masika Kihana, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you for the floor. Please, I would like really to thank the organizers for this for this workshop. It was really good for us. So we need to get it even in French because we are from French country. If we can get it even in English, the presentation, it will be better. We can try to translate it and then to give some other workshop to our people here. Most of times, people, they don't participate because of the language. So it should be better in the future to see if it will be possible to be trying to translate for those who do not have knowledge in English. Thank you very much.
You're muted, Joyce.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Masika, for really being a very great participant and being very honest feedback to us on what we should do moving forward, and representing the participants as the last part of the remarks on their behalf. We have taken note of your concern and request that we should have some translation, and we know this is still also some challenge that affect women who are doing businesses. There's need for self-capacity development in terms of language, but also for the institutions to provide that support to the women entrepreneurs so that they are able to speak confidently in the relevant languages, in the different forums, and also in the trade negotiation processes. This is a very important aspect, because if you cannot articulate the issues that you are standing for or representing, then this cannot be taken. So thank you so much for bringing and highlighting that. I hope the EABC team has taken note of that, and also EWIP. So now I would like to request the East African Business Council and all business, the East African Women in Business, to close for us the workshop. I am posting the links in the chat right now because I was seeing the screen. Over to you, Frank and Janice.
Yes, thank you very much, Joyce, for that wonderful training. And I thank all the participants for being very faithful to attend and to stay with us up to this time. We apologize for exceeding the time. But as you have rightly said, we will share the presentations and also any other relevant document that related to this training. Just to urge the participants who have not put in their email in our chat to do so that we can get the contacts to forward them the necessary documents. So with that note, let me also commend our donors, ICR and GIZ, for the support. And just to wish you all a very good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank, for such a closing remarks. I would like also from my side and on behalf of the facilitators and on the side of GIZ and the ICR, thank Christina and the EU and also the GIZ for supporting this training and for contracting us as a consultant to support this process. We are grateful, we are thankful, and we look forward to a continued partnership with our partners. And we also look forward to working with the women entrepreneurs in East Africa, whom we have been supporting from time to time. And also we would look forward to sharing our experience in women economic empowerment and also various economic activities that the facilitators have been engaged in different spaces and with different continents. We are happy to share this experience, although this time was not relevant or adequate for us to share all that we have, but we look forward to such platforms where we can be able to adding values. So we thank you so much and we wish you a very productive day. And please, our contacts is there in the presentation. Feel free to get back to us should you have any further questions. Thank you so much and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful
Bye.
day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Marcia and Joy, I would request you to stay behind briefly. Frank, do you want to stay also briefly behind? And Janice, if you're still there.
I'm still here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, no problem. We can stay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think we are now ourselves. Thank you very much, team. I actually purposely called you to remain behind. We just would like to thank you for your support and collaboration in organizing this event right from the time we started preparation until today. We just wanted to have a brief review and reflection on this so that at least it can help us moving forward, but also just honest feedback and recollections of the event and what would then be required moving forward. So I will just start by asking us to be very honest and provide the necessary feedback reflection. I know we have been overboard by 30 minutes. I think this is expected given the difficulties using online platform, but next time we will improve a little bit more in terms of that. Initially also the aspect of